Good afternoon, everyone. We're very excited to present our webinar, the first in a series of upcoming webinars focused on data automation and process intelligence. With presence in over 15 countries, Yakidu is the leading solution provider that assists companies tackle content-related challenges by implementing business process automation. Recently, we achieved the highest level in Kofax line of partners, the Diamond status, one of the only 14 in the world and the only one in Canada. In this webinar, we will have the privilege of having Victor Ben-Susan from Yakidu and Fred Dimson from Kofax. I would also like to highlight that we want to hear from you if you have any questions regarding the webinar on any of the content or how we can help you. We will not announce your name or company during the webinar. With this, I would like to hand it over to Victor to begin our webinar.
Good afternoon, everybody. And what we're going to be discussing today is our topic is going to be Robotic Process Automation, RPA, looking at a right solution to deploy, and then we're going to be taking some questions. So despite advances in process automation, vital business processes consisting of data-driven tasks such as collecting, reviewing, and inputting information still exist in most organizations. These tasks are mundane, repetitive, and boring in some cases. IT groups struggle to respond rapidly to these high-priority customer demands. Out of necessity, less urgent initiatives, even those deemed important by business groups, tend to get postponed, rescheduled, and forgotten by everyone but the person left holding the manual process together. Remedial tasks are performed manually, requiring individuals to log in and out of multiple systems, copying and pasting data between different sources and formats. This data must be then further researched and analyzed to make sure decisions are sound. Frankly speaking, time spent by these workers could almost always be put to better use. Aside from being mind-numbing for the person performing the work, manual tasks performed by people are also notably inefficient and inaccurate, especially when compared to the predictability of automated work processes. Over to Fred.
Thank you, Victor. What I'm going to cover today is a little bit about what we have in robotics process automation. And the challenge that we're trying to address here is the fact that you've got all these various systems. As you can see here, everything from legacy to Excel to email to websites. And as organizations, we're tasked with trying to get those connections all together. And it's a daunting task. And what RPA does is one of the things to solve that particular scenario. What we often find in organizations is the fact that you've got all these various information sources, and you have a number of people in the middle that are doing things from cutting and pasting to checking websites to moving data or rekeying data. It's called the swivel chair automation problem. And we see it in almost every organization. The extent of it varies organization to organization, but it seems that everyone has this specific problem. And it's kind of outgrown from sort of the legacy and moving to client-server architecture and then what's happened in today's businesses. So traditionally, some of the drawbacks to solving this problem, first of all, is often it was an IT issue. People, humans had to take a problem and sort of solve that. It's not easy to do. It usually took a long time. Reworking the current technology wasn't also the real good way to do it, because that tended to take a long period of time and wasn't flexible in terms of doing the types of things that people need. And then the third is a lot of people looked at outsourcing or offshoring. And again, they're prone to some human errors. It's hard to control in a lot of the situations. And what we're looking at with RPA is bringing that all back in-house so that you can do and better control that environment. So wanted to introduce RPA, and you can read the slides here from a couple of organizations, Forrester and the IRPA, which is a group out of New York City that runs RPA type seminars. Rather than me read these, take a look at them. I can tell you what I feel RPA really is. So it's Robotics Process Automation is creating a software robot to mimic what people would normally do, but be able to scale that to a much bigger extent. And that's what's key for RPA. So in other words, you have the ability to create an intelligent workforce. That's the piece in the middle, where from now you have the combination of both a human and the digital workforce, where people are now making strategic decisions as opposed to gathering data. And you can see some of the questions that you can respond to in the back office. Did shipments depart and arrive on time? We can have robots that do that. Are you compliant with audit requirements or government regulations? Those are another one. Where the process is breaking down, where you have issues and you need to gather data. Also moving data between different legacy type systems can be part of this process. And those all help in your customer responsiveness, improving your customer service, profitability. Are you price competitive? Are payments being delayed? You know, how quick can my loan be approved? All those type of things that help build your customer satisfaction. So I'm going to talk about three kinds of robots. These typically are what we see in the business world. One is web robots. Those are robots that acquire and integrate hard-to-reach external web data. Process robots, which integrate internal sources and automate information activities. And content robots, where you're moving data from one form to another form, or feeding a system, a legacy system. What's nice about our product is it actually runs any of these plus a combination of them. And in some of the cases where we do it, we actually can't really define which of the three it is, because it could be doing the first part in a web, then processing some information, and then doing some content migration. So you have the ability to do all of that. So I wanted to talk about a few use cases that are important, and we have a good cross-section of various industries here, so I just wanted to touch on some of that. So in the banking world, equity research is a big one. In fact, 10 out of the 12 major banks in New York City run Kofax Kapow for doing equity research and getting data from the web and from companies so that they can better advise their clients. It's also used in compliancy and risk management. In the information services and services provider area, often used for data aggregation, screening and risk management. That's a good area for us. And in retail and travel, for gathering intelligence and brand monitoring. Other areas that we see that as well is for banking and mortgage and lending, for customer service and compliance, in cross-industry, often in finance and accounting. In fact, we often see a robot created for month-end process. So instead of, going from A to B to C, which you normally would do, you can actually create a robot that is dependent on the first item happening before it kicks off the next service. So you can really streamline your month-end accounting process. In the logistics world, Kapow is actually the leader in that scenario. We've done a lot of logistics type companies and manufacturers looking at their order scheduling and tracking, touching websites that they interact with, and business-to-business type scenarios that they deal with. Also in healthcare, although it's not as applicable in Canada, for patient eligibility, physician credentialing, and customer service. In manufacturing, in supply chain automation, insurance, in claims processing, and compliance reporting and customer service. Those are all areas we've seen results and customers in those areas for use cases. So what do you see in an RPA solution? And this is a chart that actually was done by a couple of organizations, Deloitte and Cognizant, and it helps you sort of understand what the benefits of RPA are. One is that typically it's a 25 to 50% cost saving. It varies. We've seen upwards of that in a lot of the Kapow installations. And typically one robot can do the work of 2 to 5 full-time equivalent people. That frees up your staff to do more business intelligence kind of work, making decisions as opposed to gathering data. Therefore, it increases your staff productivity as well to service levels and capacity by 35 to 50%. One of the nice things with a robot is it's also a 7 by 24 capable scenario, so it doesn't take breaks and it can run, you know, at nighttime and on holidays, and you can schedule those things to run either real time or according to what you want to do. And as a result of that, we get 100% accurate data. We're actually pulling it. There's no employee error, and you're actually gathering the data from the accurate sources. So it really does help in your employee satisfaction area, and you can see on the left-hand side there some of the key elements of a solution that will help you and some of the benefits of what you get out of RPA. So let me talk a little bit about the Kapow platform. One of the nice things of Kapow is it's part of the Kofax family. And the Kofax family, a lot of you are customers of Kofax, understand that, you know, we do a lot in the capture area, in automated processing, managing content, and digitally transacting scenarios. The beauty of the robotics piece is it can work within any of those scenarios, plus it can be an overall tool that can be added to do more things. For example, if you need data from the web prior to doing some activity, you can do that and kick off a robot to make that happen, then continue on with your process. So that's not unusual in terms of what we do. And as a result of that, it helps in the mobile part, in your analytics piece, and also covers a number of industries, from insurance, financial services, government, healthcare, retail, manufacturing, education, and any business process outsourcing. So what we do is automate any business activity involving users, data, and systems. And one of the nice parts of this is acquiring that data from various sources, being able to create a single view of that data, and processing what was replicated actions of a user, and really removing that swivel chair need and really replacing that with an automated system. And therefore you're transforming the data into valuable information and really making your people more productive. So another way to look at the platform that we have today is it's a simple visual type design. It doesn't take a programmer to do this. It takes more of a business analyst. You can access data from any application. That could be legacy, it could be email, it could be Excel, all the areas that I talked about earlier. It's agile in terms of development model. You could have a real-time capability at the bottom of the design studio that shows you and debugs, and you can see the result of what your robot is doing prior to you executing it. You have enterprise management and operations. One of the nice parts of the product is it's built on a server level. Therefore, you can scale to a much larger extent than normal, and it gives you that capability in the sense of what's happening. And it's built for the business user, not necessarily the IT department, but more for a business process. I'm going to cover a couple of use case studies just to give you examples of people that are doing this. This is Union Bank in the U.S. Who does on-demand access and processing of loans. What they were able to do is reduce the turnaround time for loan documents from 15 days down to 5. And of course that means a big advantage for that area. They don't spend valuable time locating loan files. That's really done by the robots themselves. It's easier quality control and audit compliance. So you're really turning an organization around in the sense of, you know, processing from a traditional perspective. And in their case, they were able to consolidate over 800,000 loan documents into one content management system. So a very good study in the sense of what they were able to accomplish. Another one is Trinity Logistics. They cut their costs by over 90% in what they were doing manually in a business-to-business process. And now their less than load LTL shipments are being handled 95% without any manual effort. And therefore they're using their people much better in terms of what they do day to day. So that improved their margins, their top line, and gave them a much, and removed a lot of the manual areas. In fact, they are now adding more functionality and finding other areas in their organization that they can drive those kind of benefits. So anything that you're touching both website and legacy data, which often in the logistics area is the case, you can really remove a lot of that process. Now I'll turn it back to Victor here, and he'll cover one of the Yakadu installs.
So for this customer of ours, it's the largest distributor of electrical products in the world. One of their biggest issue was their customers making payments into their bank accounts. And what happened in their case is that they have many different divisions that pertain to this company. They will receive the payment to the bank, to one bank account, and then they would have to do the transferring to the other bank accounts that pertain to those divisions. So what we did is we put a robot in place that did the automatic cash transfer across all the divisions for the organization. Afterwards, the IT department actually came up to us and said, look, you had a great success doing this. One of our biggest issues is that when we discharge when we discharge our employees, we cannot disconnect them from our systems, and we have 16 different systems of business that we have to disconnect them from. So what we did is we created a robot that enabled the inactivating the users across all the 16 different systems throughout. So as you can realize, this reduced their operating costs, and it actually also brought in faster onboarding and discharging of employees as they went through it. So in regards to the right solution, one of the, these are the three biggest points when you're looking for the right solution. Make sure that the solution does not require coding or developers to actually put the solution in place, that is very scalable and flexible, that it can extract and use data from multiple sources, especially websites, web portals, and web apps. So these are the things that you should look for when you're looking for the right solution around RPA. Just a little bit about Yakadu. Yakadu is a global company. We have business partners in over 8 countries, customers in 21 countries throughout the world, 100% customer satisfaction. Every project that we deploy starts with a workshop so we can understand what your needs are and how the solution should be deployed for yourselves. And we are a Tier 1 Kofax partner, a diamond partner, the only one here in Canada, and one of 14 around the world. And Kofax is actually the product that we were talking about today. It's a Kofax product. It's called Kapow. So at this point, I'm going to pass it over to Lorena to see if there's any questions. Lorena?
Thank you for thank you very much for the interesting presentation, Victor and Fred. We have a few questions that have been shared by our attendees. We will be answering the questions that are applicable to all in our audience. For the questions that are more specific to business problems, we will send you an email right after our webinar.
Okay, so
So the first question that we have is there what kind of legacy systems does it interact with?
Okay, let me take that. Legacy, the nice part about what we do within the legacy scenario is we have native capability for organizations to take their legacy app, whether it's 3270 or any type of Oracle or SAP type scenario, or even custom written legacy apps. Basically what happens is we are able to gather that data, do the login, and then take whatever you require and move it to whatever other source or back into your legacy scenario. So it's fairly straightforward, something that we're doing more and more of as people look into relating the legacy to their web apps.
Thank you, Fred. Another question that we have is how complex or big can the robots get?
And I'll answer that one too. That's an interesting question, because what we find with people that are entering into the RPA scenarios, they typically start with a specific use case. They build maybe 10, 20 robots to resolve that particular use case. But as they do so, they start to realize where else in the organization they may be able to use this. And in fact, we have scaled the number of robots in various organizations from that beginning to a couple that are over 1,000 robots, and in fact one customer with over 50,000 robots. So the scaling is definitely there, and the ability to move from a small source to a very large source is quite easily done.
Thank you, Fred. Another question that we have is what skill level is needed to build a robot?
Okay, a skill level there, that's a good question, because often people look at this and say, gee, do I have to really get a developer to do this? And as I said earlier in the presentation, that's not necessary. What is necessary is typically a person who understands the business flow. A business analyst with good Excel macro skill sets often is a very good source for us to teach them how to do and build their own robots, and over time they can do it. Also, just as a introduction with Yakadu, they're quite capable of helping you start that process and help you build the first couple, and then you can really move it from there and expand your own capability.
That is all for today. Thank you very much to all our attendees for the interest showed, and our panelists, thank you very much for sharing this valuable information with us. If any of you have any questions, additional questions, please send us an email. You can respond to the webinar invitation and we'll be responding back to your questions. Good afternoon, everybody.